August 15, 2025, a date that will be etched into the annals of diplomatic history. On this day, the world holds its breath as two of the most powerful leaders on the planet prepare to meet in a setting as dramatic as the stakes themselves. The world's eyes are fixed on Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson in Anchorage, Alaska. Here, U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are set to engage in a high-stakes summit, one that could alter the course of global politics. The base, usually a symbol of military readiness, is now transformed into a stage for international diplomacy, with security at its highest and media from every continent gathered to capture every moment. Against the breathtaking backdrop of Alaska's snow-capped mountains, the summit takes on an almost cinematic quality. This marks Putin's first visit to the United States in over a decade, a rare and significant occasion. The event is branded "Pursuing Peace," a hopeful slogan that belies the tension and uncertainty in the air. The city of Anchorage buzzes with anticipation, its streets lined with banners and its people watching history unfold in real time. Both leaders arrive flanked by powerful delegations, each member a key player in the unfolding drama. The presence of top military, economic, and intelligence officials signals that the agenda is as broad as it is consequential. Every handshake, every exchanged glance, is scrutinized for meaning. The press conference room is packed, the air thick with expectation as the world waits to hear what will be discussed behind closed doors. Originally, the summit was to begin with a private one-on-one meeting between Trump and Putin. But in a last-minute change, the plan was scrapped in favor of a larger, more structured dialogue. This shift reflects the complexity of the issues at hand and the need for transparency and accountability in a world where every word can have global repercussions. In a powerful and symbolic gesture, President Putin joins President Trump inside the U.S. presidential limousine. The image of the two leaders riding together sends a message of potential cooperation, even as deep divisions remain. The convoy snakes through the base, watched by cameras and onlookers, every movement analyzed for signs of unity or discord. The summit's isolated setting, surrounded by the vast and untamed Alaskan wilderness, underscores the gravity of the moment. Here, far from the distractions of Washington or Moscow, the leaders hope to find common ground. The remote venue is a reminder of both the distance between the two nations and the possibility of bridging that gap. The world hopes for a breakthrough, especially as the conflict in Ukraine continues to cast a long shadow over East-West relations. Across the globe, millions watch the summit unfold, some with hope, others with skepticism. Newsrooms buzz with analysis, and public spaces are filled with people glued to screens, anxious for any sign of progress. Yet beneath the anticipation lies a deep wariness. Will any deal come at Ukraine's expense, or will this meeting mark a genuine step toward peace? The world waits, holding its breath for what comes next. The outcome of the Alaska summit is poised to reverberate far beyond the icy streets of Anchorage. This high-stakes meeting will not only shape the futures of the United States, Russia, and Ukraine, but also send shockwaves through the entire international order. The world is watching as leaders gather, each with their own ambitions, anxieties, and red lines. The United States, Russia, and Ukraine are at the heart of these talks, but the implications stretch to every continent. The decisions made here could alter the balance of power, redraw alliances, and determine the fate of millions. For Donald Trump, the summit is a defining test of his America First diplomacy. He faces the challenge of negotiating an end to the war in Ukraine, but must do so without making concessions that could alienate key allies or undermine U.S. credibility. Trump's approach is under intense scrutiny, as he seeks to prove that his brand of deal-making can deliver peace while protecting American interests. For Vladimir Putin, the stakes are equally high. He arrives in Alaska hoping to break Russia's diplomatic isolation, secure relief from crippling sanctions, and reassert Moscow's influence on the world stage. With nuclear arms treaties nearing expiration and Russia's economy under strain, Putin is under pressure to achieve tangible gains, without appearing weak at home or abroad. Ukraine's fate hangs in the balance. The country's leaders and citizens fear that their sovereignty and territorial integrity could be bargained away in a deal struck without their full participation. For Ukrainians, the summit is a moment of deep anxiety, as they hope for a just peace but worry about being used as a pawn in a larger geopolitical game. European allies, meanwhile, are deeply concerned about being sidelined. They worry that decisions made in Alaska could undermine the unity of the Western alliance, weaken NATO, or set dangerous precedents for future conflicts. The EU's leaders are determined to have their voices heard, even as the spotlight remains on Washington and Moscow. Beyond the West, China and India are watching the proceedings with keen interest. Both nations are wary of Trump's threats of secondary sanctions and are calculating how the summit's outcome could affect their own strategic interests. The choices made in Alaska could shift the global balance, influencing trade, security, and the future of international norms. The Alaska Summit has become a focal point for a world grappling with shifting alliances, rising tensions, and the ever-present threat of wider conflict. The eyes of the globe are fixed on the negotiation table, where every gesture and statement is analyzed for signs of compromise or confrontation. Every word exchanged in Alaska carries immense weight, as diplomats and leaders navigate a minefield of competing interests and historical grievances. The stakes could not be higher, and the risks of miscalculation are real. The pursuit of peace here is fraught with complexity and risk, but the world is holding its breath, hoping that dialogue can prevail over division, and that the Alaska talks will mark a turning point toward a more stable and secure future. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is notably absent from the summit, leaving Kyiv feeling sidelined. Zelensky insists that no decisions about Ukraine's future are legitimate without Ukrainian participation. The fear in Kyiv Ukraine's sovereignty could become a bargaining chip in a larger geopolitical deal. Land swaps or territorial concessions are non-starters for Ukraine, which demands restoration of its 1991 borders. With no seat at the table, Ukraine relies on public statements and back-channel diplomacy to make its case. Trump hints at a future trilateral meeting, but for Ukraine, the priority is ensuring today's talks don't impose an unjust peace. The empty seat in Anchorage is a stark reminder of a nation fighting for its existence. President Trump's goal in Alaska is clear: stop the killing in Ukraine, not broker a final peace. He favors a transactional approach, pushing for a ceasefire now, leaving complex details for later. Trump's ambiguity on security guarantees for Ukraine keeps allies uneasy, as he urges Europe to shoulder more responsibility. His main leverage threats of severe economic consequences for Russia, not ironclad military commitments. Trump seeks to reduce U.S. entanglements abroad and reshape relations with Russia, even considering controversial solutions like land swaps. His agenda is personal, a chance to prove his deal-making prowess on the world stage, the true test, whether any peace achieved is just and lasting. For Putin, Alaska is a chance to secure relief from crippling sanctions and reassert Russia's global standing. He's willing to discuss a ceasefire in Ukraine, but only for significant concessions, especially on sanctions. Putin also seeks to launch new nuclear arms talks as the last major treaty nears expiration. Russia's long-term intentions for occupied Ukrainian territories remain opaque. Putin may push to formalize control or keep Ukraine out of NATO. The summit itself is a win for Putin, forcing the U.S. to engage with him as a peer. He aims to project strength and ensure Russia's security concerns are addressed. Alaska is his platform to negotiate a new status quo in Eastern Europe. Despite the "Pursuing Peace" slogan, skepticism abounds. Ukraine's exclusion from talks raises doubts about the legitimacy and durability of any deal. Critics fear Trump's unpredictability and desire for a quick win could lead to dangerous concessions. The lack of U.S. ambassadors in Moscow and Kiev and the temporary suspension of some sanctions add to concerns about transparency. Some worry the summit legitimizes Russian aggression by granting Putin a high-profile platform. Protesters argue that talks should require a full Russian withdrawal from Ukraine. The risk: a ceasefire that freezes the conflict and ratifies Russia's gains. Across Europe, leaders gather in tense anticipation, their eyes fixed on the summit broadcast. The atmosphere is thick with a blend of hope and anxiety as they weigh the possibilities of a breakthrough against the risks of disappointment. In capitals from Berlin to Paris, officials exchange cautious glances, aware that the decisions made today could reshape the continent's future for years to come. Many leaders feel a sense of relief knowing that experienced advisors and diplomats are by their side, ready to scrutinize every proposal and prevent any hasty or impulsive agreements. The stakes are high, and the presence of seasoned experts offers a measure of reassurance in these uncertain times. Outside, the voices of ordinary citizens and activists ring out. Protesters gather in city squares and outside government buildings, their banners demanding an immediate and unconditional ceasefire. For many, the hope is simple: an end to violence and a chance for peace to take root. Another core demand echoes through the streets and the halls of power alike: that no borders be changed by force. European societies, shaped by the painful lessons of history, are united in their insistence that territorial integrity must be respected and that any settlement must uphold international law. At the same time, there is a widespread call for robust security guarantees for Ukraine. Leaders and citizens alike recognize that any peace must be durable, and that Ukraine's sovereignty and safety cannot be left to chance or vague promises. Across the Atlantic, in the United States, the mood is equally complex. In living rooms and on city streets, Americans follow the news with a mix of hope, skepticism, and concern. Public opinion is deeply divided. Many yearn for an end to the conflict and a return to stability. Yet polls reveal a lack of confidence in former President Trump's ability to negotiate a fair and lasting peace. Debates erupt in town halls and online forums, with some fearing that his approach could undermine hard-won alliances or lead to unpredictable outcomes. Despite these doubts, support for Ukraine remains strong across much of the American public. Rallies in major cities and heartfelt messages on social media reflect a deep sense of solidarity with the Ukrainian people and their struggle for self-determination. Still, as the summit unfolds, skepticism about its approach and potential outcomes continues to grow. Many wonder whether the negotiations will truly address the root causes of the conflict or simply paper over deeper divisions. A central debate emerges. Should America work in close coordination with its European allies, presenting a united front, or should it pursue a more independent, bold form of direct diplomacy? Some argue that only bold, direct engagement can break the current stalemate, while others warn that going it alone risks alienating partners and weakening the international order. Trump supporters, meanwhile, see the summit as a necessary and courageous step, an opportunity to challenge the status quo and force a resolution where others have failed. Critics, however, caution against sidelining established alliances and diplomatic processes that have underpinned decades of relative peace and stability. They warn that bypassing these frameworks could have unintended and far-reaching consequences. The outcome of this summit will not only determine the immediate future of Ukraine and Europe, but will also shape America's global role for years to come. As the world watches, the relationship between America and Europe hangs in the balance, with the choices made here set to define the next chapter in transatlantic cooperation and global security. As leaders negotiate in Alaska, war rages on in Ukraine. Missile strikes and fierce battles continue unabated. The summit's lofty rhetoric contrasts sharply with the daily violence and loss on the ground. For Ukrainians, peace is urgent and personal, a matter of survival, not just diplomacy. Pro-Ukraine protests erupt in Anchorage and Kiev, demanding that any deal respect Ukraine's sovereignty. Demonstrators remind negotiators, peace cannot be built on the violation of a nation's rights. Civil society's voice is loud, calling for justice and a settlement grounded in international law. The sounds of war and protest echo far beyond the summit's closed doors. As the summit ends, the world waits to see what comes next. Trump floats the idea of a trilateral meeting with Zelensky if progress is made, a crucial step for Ukraine's inclusion. Outcomes range from a breakthrough ceasefire to a collapse that could escalate the war. Allies will scrutinize any deal for signs of pressure on Ukraine or fractures in Western unity, the real measure of success, whether the fighting stops and a just peace is possible. The Alaska summit is only one step on a long, uncertain road. The decisions made here will echo across Ukraine and the world for years to come.